Occupational English Test. Listening Test 1. This test has 3 parts. In each part, you'll hear a number of different extracts. At the start of each extract, you'll hear this sound. You'll have time to read the questions before you hear each extract. And you'll hear each extract once only. Complete your answers as you listen. At the end of the test, you'll have 2 minutes to check your answers. Part A. In this part of the test, you'll hear 2 different extracts. In each extract, a health professional is talking to a patient. For questions 1 to 24, complete the notes with information you hear. Now look at the notes for Extract 1. Extract 1. Questions 1 to 12. You hear a knee specialist talking to a new patient called Jason Riley. For questions 1 to 12, complete the notes with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at the notes.
So, Mr. Riley, you've been referred to me because of a problem with your knee, is that correct?
Yes, it's my right knee. It's very painful.
OK. I've got some information here from your GP who's treated you for bursitis, but can you tell me about how this developed and what's happened so far?
Well, about 2 years ago now, my knee, this knee, swelled up and was really big. It didn't hurt, and it just looked really strange. I'd been on a week's golf holiday in Portugal, and the knee was a bit dodgy all the time I was there. Well, when I got home and the wife saw it, she sent me off to the GP straight away, who said that it was what people used to call housemaid's knee. That caused a few laughs at home, I can tell you. Then I remembered that my mum used to get that in her shoulder. It's really called bursitis, isn't it?
Yes.
But he said not to worry, to rest up a bit and wait and see if it went away. And it did in a few weeks.
Right.
So I was okay for a while. Then about a year ago, I got a new job. I used to be a painter and decorator, but I retrained as a carpet fitter. So I'm on my knees quite a bit. Goes with the job. And after a while, this must be about 6 months ago, the knee swelled up again. It looked really red this time, and I had a sort of dull pain as well that got worse.
OK.
Also, I felt slightly shivery and feverish. The GP said I probably had an infection and gave me some antibiotics for 10 days or so. That seemed to do the trick, and I felt much better, but the knee was still a bit swollen and it ached sometimes.
Did you try painkillers?
Oh, yeah. After a bit, the doctor suggested ibuprofen, but that always seems to give me a tummy upset, so I stuck to paracetamol. I'm still using them on and off. At work, they put me on to doing things that didn't need a lot of kneeling when I first went back, but only temporarily. And I put ice packs on my knee to bring down the swelling as often as I could, every few hours. I tried to take breaks too. Oh, and my GP suggested some exercises to protect the knee, lying down on my back and raising the leg.
Yes.
Which seems to reduce the aching. In bed, I made sure I slept with a pillow under it to keep it a bit higher up too.
And was your knee still swollen?
Yeah, it was. So then the doctor drained off some of the fluid by sticking in a needle. I remember he said he got 20 millilitres out.
Right.
After that, he suggested that I try some supports in my shoes. I couldn't really see the point of that, but apparently it's to do with your arches, which I guess does affect your knees.
Yes.
Also, he told me to make sure that I have plenty of padding on my knees when I'm at work, and I've been doing that.
Good.
He told me that I should think about losing a good few kilos as well, but I like my food, as you can see, and I haven't made any progress with that so far. But things weren't getting better, so then he started giving me cortisone injections. I've had 3 of those so far.
And what effect did they have?
They really helped. Much less swelling, and the pain's better too. But that's the problem. He now says that with those sorts of drugs, you can't have more than 3 of them in the same knee in a year. I'm up to the limit, and it keeps coming back, so really I'm hoping you'll be able to come up with something better.
Okay. Well, let's have a look, shall we? If you can...
Extract 2. Questions 13 to 24. You hear a neurologist talking to a new patient called Sylvia Gun. For questions 13 to 24, complete the notes with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at the notes.
Hello, Mrs. Gunn. You've been referred to me because of some pain in your face. Now, I've got some notes from your GP, but perhaps you can tell me in your own words about the pain, when it started and what's happened since.
Well, it began about 3 years back. Out of the blue, I got this terrible shooting pain in a back tooth. I've never felt anything like it before in my life. See, it was a tooth I'd had a nasty abscess on a few years before, and I assumed that it had got infected again. Anyway, I went off to the dentist as soon as I could get an appointment. So he did some x-rays, but he couldn't find anything wrong, which was very strange.
Was the pain continuous, and did anything in particular trigger it?
It came and went, and it lasted just a minute or so each time, but it really got bad when I brushed my teeth. I always use an electric toothbrush. They're so much better than the usual sort, but it didn't like that one little bit. I even tried to persuade the dentist to whip the tooth out there and then, because I was so sure that that was the problem. But he told me he was pretty sure there was nothing wrong with my teeth at all, and I ought to see my GP.
And your GP has diagnosed trigeminal neuralgia.
Well, first of all, the GP told me to try painkillers. That was to exclude things like a migraine, I think, but the pills, they didn't have any effect at all. So then he sent me off for a CT scan because he said it might be a very bad case of sinusitis. I'd had that before when I was a teenager. Or he said even nerve damage. But that was all negative too. So then after all that, the GP eventually put me on an anti-epilepsy drug, which seemed to help.
I see. So how is it now?
Well, the pain sometimes goes away for weeks at a time, but then it can come back a dozen times a day. Fortunately, I get a tingling feeling in my jaw when it's going to start, which I can recognise as a sign. So at least I get a bit of warning before the pain comes on properly, and I can try to find somewhere quiet to sit down.
But the pain has now begun to spread.
Yes. It started to happen in my eye, too, on the same side as the tooth. I was doing okay until the firm where I work moved to a new office. It's a lovely new building, and everything was fine at first until about 3 months ago when the weather started to improve and they turned up the air conditioning because lots of people were complaining about being too hot. That's when I started getting pains in the eye, and I'm pretty sure it's connected But the system's the same all over the building, and it's not as if I'm sitting in a draft, so there's not much I can do about it. I've tried wearing glasses all the time, and that seemed to help a bit, at least at the beginning.
And these pains in the eye, tell me how long they last and how often you get them.
It's getting worse and worse. Over the last fortnight, it's been every day and sometimes every hour, and it's really excruciating. It's getting me down, and I've started losing weight too, what with the worry and the pain, and I've had to give up my yoga class, which I loved, because you never know when the pain's going to come on. And, well, that's making me feel very isolated. I really hope you can do something more for me, Doctor.
That is the end of Part A. Now look at Part B.